talking about the air conditioning's kind of loud. To make it a real authentic event for you.
My ex-wife. You know the painter, the guy that goes around with all the paintings. Yeah, you don't know him?
He's Haitian?
Oh yeah, he goes back and forth and continues to bring up. I'll give you contact information.
Yeah.
There's a Haitian living in the city mission.
Yeah.
He's an African professor. He has network organization, so he's in the city mission.
So,
He's been there for years.
hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to our very large panel discussion. My name is Brian Lee. I'm the curator here at Museo. And in the interest of time, we're going to have everyone introduce themselves. And today, how many of you have seen the exhibition? Yeah? If you haven't, we have some postcards from the show and a printout that includes the images and captions from the show that kind of brush up on. Today, we're going to talk about a few things that we'll kind of go through in order. So, without further ado, let's begin.
Alright, so I am Rubens Mukunzi. I'm a publisher and a founder of Caribbean newspaper. It's a special newspaper for immigrants and refugees. I'm from Rwanda, but I've been living here in Buffalo from 3 years.
I'm Jocelyne. I'm from Haiti. I've been here for 6 years after the earthquake. Yes.
My turn. I'm Pam Kefi. Many people in Buffalo might know me for my work with refugees, but I lived in Haiti for almost 2 years in 2012 and 2013. So I think that's why I'm here today.
I'm Centrie, and I have an unusual position here today because I'm the founder and the executive director of Museo. It just happened to be sort of fitting into today's discussion. Originally, I was raised in Haiti from the Middle Eastern community, which had a particular interesting position vis-a-vis the government and so forth, and we can hopefully talk a little bit about that. I'm also a professor at Medai College.
Courtney Grim, also from Medai College, and one of the artists that exhibited the work for the Conversation and Conflict. We documented a mission trip to Haiti. Can you hear me? We documented. We documented a mission trip to Haiti, and when we were looking through the images, we couldn't discover whether or not we were helpful. And the reason we went to document, Jim will talk about. So we were successful on our trip because we just documented. And then the question came, is it really helpful to go and actually do work in Haiti, or how is it best to help Haiti?
Hi, I'm Jim Brace. I'm a professor at Medai College. My background is I'm a social worker, and I practice in the area of children and families. And such areas as child abuse and neglect, child development, and these sorts of things. I went on this trip with Courtney in London, and where's Mark? Mark?
So before we get started, do we want the air off so we can hear better, or the other way around? Can everybody hear okay? Would you rather be comfortable? We can do both. Off? Okay.
Maybe we can turn it back on when we get really hot.
Okay, there we go.
If somebody starts fainting, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that'll be a good indicator. Yeah, especially since it's your building. Yes.
You know what, if you open up that back door, this way,
There was only 2 options.
Oh my God.
What?
That's white noise, isn't it?
Hi, Ruben.
Hi, how are you?
You know what, Brian, if you open up that back door and open up the front door, there's like this peculiar wind that comes through.
Okay.
Okay, but that may actually just.
We wash out cold air.
Maybe we don't do
wait,
that.
not
Let's
yet.
Wait,
yeah,
yeah,
let's wait on that. Yeah, good point.
Let's wait. Okay, so I think we should start where the meat is, which is this trip in question that Courtney and Jim and everyone else went on. And I would encourage panelists to kind of question each other or ask questions to each other if you have anything to clear up. But Courtney and Jim, I don't know if you could give us a little bit more in-depth of a background about the trip and kind of the impetus and preparation and what happened on the trip.
Sure. Should we start with the visit to our? I teach a course. I co-teach a course with Dr. Rich Jacob on music and psychology, and we came in contact with. I'm not going to mention any last names, but a local musician from Haiti. His name was Frank. Frank came and gave kind of a drum lesson in our class, and talking about some of the. We connected that to psychology, and then another guest came to our class as part of that experience. Her name was Belinda, and she was from Haiti. She's an American, and she mentioned that her group was starting a fundraising and receiving what we call it, school supplies, right? And a school was being built in Plaisance, is that right? And so our classes, along with some classes at the University of Buffalo, made tremendous donations in terms of school supplies, and we passed that along to Belinda and Frank for shipping to Haiti. And subsequent to that, you're going to jump in here in a second, right? We were invited through that group to take a trip to Haiti for a few days, and documentarians. I think I was supposed to speak at the opening of the schools.
Yep, and so we each had a part to play, and Marty and I were invited to document so that they could encourage further fundraising, document the exchange of the school supplies that the students had collected, giving to the future students at the school they were building in Plaisance. So we said that we were excited to, experience Haiti and to help in some way, and so we just went with the notion that we were just going to document the experience itself. So my partner and I got much more out of the trip itself because we were literally just documenting what was happening. And what was happening unfolded into being corrupt, misinformation, criminal mayhem that didn't help and didn't happen. And it was frustrating and hard since the students had worked so hard gathering the material. So the question came out, this idea of wanting to help and being helpful. And so the images from the exhibition were this play on this is what is here on this side of the island and this is what's happening on this side of the island. And they're both happening, so what do you do about it? And when we talked with Brian about what do we want from it, and really we wanted to know, is it possible to help a country that is in such need and was in such need and has so much corruption, and how do you do that? And so we thought it would be great to get a variety of people with different experiences together to have that conversation. Does that sum it up? His experience was not as pleasant as our experience because when Jim was presented with the individuals to give the presentation of the school supplies, first of all, there were no school supplies, and second, there were 6 selected young children, 2 or 3-year-olds.
The school wasn't built.
Half of them were the school was not built, and it was supposedly going to be built on a religious site that had a current voodoo ritual happening in it. They didn't know this was happening, and in the government's town. And
well, and we want to move down the road and allow others to speak, but just to clarify, you use the word criminal, which is sort of description. So if there's anything criminal, it possibly was the Americans. All right.
Cut that out of the tape.
Okay, let's
Okay, is it okay to ask you a quick question?
Yes.
How many people on your that were in your entourage spoke French and were able to navigate without an interpreter?
We were not able to navigate. The four of us were not able to navigate without an interpreter. But the group that we were with had different dialects, and we picked up people along the way that had different dialects, and they had difficulty communicating. And some of the people from the camps that went to the north, where there was sort of country-like, had a different dialect. So there was a real, for a country that extricated itself from slavery by creating a dialect, I was surprised by this new concept of communication. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, my thought was not only was there cultural barriers and differences, but then also you throw in the language and not being able to communicate directly also could affect, you know, the goals and figuring out what was going on and being able to ask direct questions. Mm-hmm. If you have to go through an interpreter, then that might not understand the person that they're talking to. It compounds the misinformation and the difficulty of understanding because you're not going to get to the question answer.
if just to clarify that, there were 5 people in our group who were very conversant in every situation that required local language or French.
Creole.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I just want to maybe explain a little bit what Courtney had experienced. People who live in Port-au-Prince and are closer to the formal institutions such as government and so forth, you know, diplomats and tourists, speak a city Creole, okay? But if people are essentially isolated in the mountains or, you know, they're further away from the capital, let's say in Cap-Haïtien, you know, the language is also influenced by where the slaves came from originally in Africa. So there's differences in accent and there's differences in the language itself. And so just because you took Creole in college or something like that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to be completely conversant to it the whole time.
I didn't know you could take Creole in college. That's wonderful.
Yes, you can. Yes.
If I could follow up with that, you mentioned your experience when you were there, how your group was essentially kind of isolated from the world at large. You traveled in convoys, and you had interpreters and armed guards and all that. I don't know if you could speak a little more to that kind of your feeling of traveling in a bubble, essentially.
We were escorted the entire time by armed security men carrying what
AR-15s.
AR-15, thank you. Which we discovered when Marty sat on one. And that was the start of the experience. And I don't know if there were bullets. They were weapons. I don't know if there were bullets. I never heard one fired. But security was very tight. We were told that the security needed to be incredibly tight at the airport because that's where Americans were taken from when they arrived into the country, was from the airport where they left to go to. And so we were held in an area, never went through security, and it sort of was like that the whole time.
I thought this was an abusive use of power. Now, remember, I'm not a practical person, and I grew up in Buffalo, New York, so I mentioned this to Pam a little bit earlier, and she gave me a bit of a reality check, and maybe you could
About the potential need for such security?
Yes, yeah, and it matched your experience as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so I worked at the U.S. Embassy. I worked for U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and and my husband was the reason we were there, and so he was with Homeland Security. But as a family that was assigned to the embassy, we had very strict protocols that we had to follow. We had curfews. My kids went to school in an armored vehicle. And this was just, there were still, when we arrived there were still camps set up in Place Saint-Pierre and Place Boyer. There were still people living in tents in those places, and there was a lot of still sort of infrastructure problems and insecurity. But whenever I would travel for work, you couldn't leave 15 miles from Port-au-Prince without 2 vehicles, very strict protocols. But I learned and I was very offended when I first got there. I was a Peace Corps volunteer. I've lived out in the community with people, and that's how I would want to travel, that's how I would want to live. But, after you're there for a while and you read the news, you listen to what's happening, you talk to people, you realize that there is danger, there are security risks, there are missionaries killed, there are people who try to go to a bank where money is taken from them, kids are kidnapped. It happens. And when people are hosting you in their country, which I'm thinking that somebody from the Ministry of Education maybe was involved, if it was a school.
He was the equivalent of our congressman, deputy.
Oh, okay. So he's now got some kind of liability and responsibility for your group, and he was probably operating in what was sort of standard protocol, because it's high crime and poverty. There's crime, and people who bring money to the country, have things people might want. And,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think being in that situation really gives you a practical, non-abstract understanding of desperation. Your comments have really helped me as well.
Yeah, so Pam, could you tell us a bit more about the work that you and your husband did in Haiti?
Yeah, my husband works for Homeland Security, and he was the field office director at the U.S. Embassy. So for the Haitians who were immigrating to the United States, they were going through his office, and he would handle adoption, American adoption, which is a whole nother meeting one night to talk about that if you want. And then my job was working in the education section at USAID, and so the very specific objective for my department at the time was to create a Creole education curriculum, because in Haiti, kids learn Creole at home, and as soon as they hit a formal school, it's all in French, and there's been no sort of attention to learning to read and write in your mother tongue. So a lot of kids are really left behind, and they don't have access to quality education. So they were developing a Creole, formalized, codified Creole education program. But aside from my professional work, I got very involved with the deaf community in Haiti, which is something that I, feel so honored to have had the opportunity to do. The deaf community in Haiti is one of the most marginalized communities, as are most deaf people in developing countries. Because when you only have enough money to educate one child in your family, you're not going to send your deaf child to school. And there's not been a lot of attention from the government to people with disabilities. So there are very few deaf schools. And I had worked here with the deaf, so I got involved, and it was really an amazing experience to see them over the past 4 or 5 years too become really formalized. They have organizations now. They have purpose, and it's really great.
And you, when did you and your family live in Haiti?
We were there in 2012, 2013. Yeah.
And that's right on. It's like a year after the.
After the earthquake.
Yeah, it was after the earthquake. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jocelyne, I know we talked before, and you mentioned that you had actually experienced the earthquake itself. I don't know if you could tell everyone a little bit about how it really was from a first person perspective, because we know of this earthquake and we've learned about it through the media and through everything that's come after. But
After the earthquake.
yeah.
And I came here after 1 month after the earthquake, because they have, my family didn't want me to stay in Haiti. You know, I came here after 1 month. I'm familiar to come in America. This year I have 30 years old. I came here in America. Only for sometime for I can buy stuff, I can buy accessories for clothes from Manhattan to Haiti. Yes, I have 30 years. My children came here every year, just for vacation. You know?
You asked her in French, what was it like to live through the earthquake and the days immediately following the earthquake? What was that like for her?
Oui, essayez de résumer la vie et la situation après le tremblement de terre en Haïti. Comment était la situation? La situation après.
Oh, I just finished work. You know, I went home. I went home. I'm going to take a shower. I put my foot and one of my foot inside the bathroom, and yes. All of destroyed. Yes. And my house shaking. You know.
And then in the days afterwards, what happened then?
Electricity?
No electricity, nothing.
What do you guys do for?
I slept on the street. On the street, me and people in my house for many days. And it's so hard.
How about for food, for eating in the house?
For food, it's very difficult to have food.
What did she think was going to happen then, like in the country? How was everybody like acting and feeling? What did they think was going to happen?
So they must say, qu'ils avaient arrivé comme c'est pour payer, comme c'est qui sont qui ça va faire payer, futur payer. Ça va bien penser.
Non, parce que nous te comprenons que c'était en le sang, comme si il y a un bail qui bon que tu as venir.
She thought that there was a good thing that was going to happen because of all that,
all of people
together, change the country, change the way we were thinking, and then,
oui, nous te comprenons que tu es un bon bagage qui t'a pas venir pour payer, parce que tout le monde vient aider. Et puis, au résumé, pas grand qui fait.
She thought like, like a good thing was going to happen because everybody was helping, but at the end, nothing changed.
And people become hungry.
People become like very angry.
Very angry. Yes.
Vous avez eu le soutien gouvernemental pour vous aider après le tremblement de terre. I want to know if the government did something to help them after this situation.
No, people outside the country, not the government.
The government fell, though, didn't it?
Yes, it was Préval. Yes. Nothing.
Et aujourd'hui, en Haïti, quelle est la situation selon les gens qui vous parlent après le tremblement de terre? I want to know the situation today in Haiti.
This is
after,
you know, this is the reason I'm here. You know, I have 61 years. I was afraid most of the time. You know. Je suis ici depuis 6 ans.
I'm here from 6 years.
But sometimes, every year I went to my country. But this year, I have 1 year, 2 months, I'm not going. Because something bad happened to me. I went to the north. People put fire. I was on the car. Yes, in the north, people put fire. People become very, very, very hungry. They don't respect anybody. You know, you can go to the bank. You know, it's very hard. Very hard. Je pense que c'est la pauvreté qui les rend comme ça.
Poverty is one of the reasons all this happening in Haiti.
And most, les gens ont laissé les gens qui faisaient le jardin, qui cultivaient, ont laissé leur jardin pour rentrer dans la capitale.
Donc les gens qui cultivaient,
oui,
on les laisse pour aller dans la capitale.
Ils ont laissé la culture.
Or the people used to be in rural or out of city, they come now in the city. So
yes,
there's a lot of people coming in the city, and then may cause maybe a lot of crime. And,
yes.
Yeah.
Can I go to Centrie? I know you know a little bit about the history of the problems, say in Haiti, and with the kind of say the U.S.'s attention focus on Haiti goes back before the earthquake too.
Yes.
Right. Well, I need to probably explain that. Everybody here at the panel comes with the historic artifact because I haven't been there since 1989. And when I grew up there in the 1950s and and 60s, this was the Duvalier era, which is different from Preval, and the successive governments that occurred after. What did you ask me? Actually,
yeah, if you could just talk more about the background.
Well, I mean, in short, I guess it could easily be said that I would say that much of the current condition of Haiti as it exists today is at least in part fault of the United States and France, all right? Because if the whole Western world is sort of embedded in a slavery economy, and you have a country that has liberated itself against all odds from colonialism and from slavery, this is a very dangerous situation, all right, for the economies of anywhere in South America, Central America, the Caribbean, or the United States. And so the Southern representatives in Congress of the United States lobbied very hard to ensure the fact that the United States would embargo the country indefinitely, which it did. And France, on the other hand, continued to demand reparation for what it lost during this liberation revolution, and to the tune of several $1 million. And I think, unless I'm not mistaken here, I think Haiti continues to pay a certain amount of money to France for its liberation. It cannot get out from underneath this this burden that continues. And I remember when the president of France went to Haiti. One of the things that the acting president at that time said is, "Can you please release us from this debt we have to you?" And to which he responded, "No." All right, so that explains to some extent its continuing poverty and so forth. Does that answer that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's a good kind of segue if I could pose this to all of you. We've heard from the one end of the spectrum, which is kind of the well-meaning attempt for a concerned everyday person to tackle these large-scale problems and injustices that are rooted in a lot of history that maybe as individuals we might not really have the means or even the power to work against. And so that question comes back up. It's like, well, what can I do, or what can one do? And in a way, I feel it's a very Western or American perspective too, which is like when faced with a problem, we want to be like, well, how can I help? How can I change the situation? So I wanted to open that to everyone to see what kind of responses everyone might get to this question, or whether that's even the correct question to pose. Anyone? Courtney?
Well, I'm waiting to hear the answer.
You know, going back and forth over the 2 years on the plane, we see so many groups of Americans coming down from their churches with the matching T-shirts, and everybody loves Haiti, hearts for Haiti, hope for Haiti. You know, the money alone spent on those T-shirts could support a community for a long period of time. And I really started to get frustrated when I saw the amount of money that would go into sending American youth into Haiti to do work that was clearly within the capacity of the community to provide on their own.
Right.
So that, I think that's one sort of dynamic that's taking place. There's a lot of conversations about this sort of volunteer tourism movement that's taking place. You know, but then people are afraid to send their money to Haiti because they don't know what will happen to their money. And so I think it's really important to do research and find really reputable programs that are taking place where there's people on the ground living there year after year after year in the community, whether it's Haitians or Americans or whoever. But you can't fly in, fly out, jump in, jump out. You know, you really have to invest in something. This jewelry that I'm wearing, for example, is made by the Apparent Project. There was a couple that went down, you know, if you want to talk about how an American can help, they went down to adopt. And we were staying in the orphanage because they wanted to really understand this organization. They wanted to be near their child. And they saw the corruption, and they started to realize that the majority of the children in the orphanage were not orphans. They became pretty concerned about this dynamic, and they moved out of the orphanage and started to live elsewhere. And they never left. They've been living there for, you know, I don't know, maybe 8 years or something like that. But what they did was they started to create employment programs and try to get the moms working so they didn't have to give up their kids. So she now employs 300 people. They're making beads. They sell them all over the world to Walmart even. You know, so they're mass producing this jewelry. And they're extremely successful. They're making all kinds of products. So something like that, you know, find an organization where there's actually somebody engaging in creating jobs. That's the #1 problem right now is employment. People don't need handouts, they need jobs. So.
I mean, I wanted to, something that you said, not specifically something that you said, but something that you said that made me think. I remember certain things when I was visiting family, or when I was living there, that just something to take into consideration when the kind of conversation is going on. The idea that Americans come there and we're here to, they're here to help, okay, all the time, raises some ethical questions for me. Okay, some might be, the handouts don't always come free, per se. Okay, that's #1. I mean, I know of specific situations where Protestant groups, I'm saying Protestant because it's essentially a Catholic voodoo country, right? So Protestant groups in the United States would come searching for souls, or whatever the case is, and they came with food, and they came with medication, and all these other things. But to get these things, you had to become a member of that church. All right, and which I think, either you're going to help somebody or you're not going to help somebody. You know what I'm saying? You don't come there with conditions. The conditions are you have to do what I want you to do, or you can't have. They're dangling it as a carrot in front of somebody who desperately needs it, and then saying we won't give it to you unless you do this. Taking into consideration, okay, I am part of the American system. I'm not going to say I'm not. However, having said that, Americans like to impose their system of democracy on everybody. And a country like Haiti doesn't have the historic development and background that equals what occurred in the United States. I mean, America is an experiment of a particular era in a period called the Enlightenment, right? Haiti doesn't come through this same experience, okay? And I might add that, Iraq, Syria, all the places in which these changes are expected to be implemented, they don't have this historic experience from which to be able to base this concept of democracy that you have right now. So this will go back to my point on dividing. He was notorious. He was quite a character. I don't know if anybody remembers him personally. Does anybody remember him personally? Am I too old here? I mean, he dressed all in black. He wore a black bowler. He always wore black sunglasses, even at night.
Who was
The Président François Duvalier, right? Because
Papa Doc.
Papa Doc, yeah, okay. I mean, you know, his car, when he drove it, had the number 666 as the license plate. Because he wanted to associate himself with the voodoo spirit of Baron Samedi. Because he knew that that's where the power, you know, in the country came. Now, he was ruthless, all right? He had a group of people called Tante Macoute. Tante Macoute in Creole means Uncle Knapsack, okay? And it's a Haitian version of the American concept of the boogeyman. So if you want to scare a kid, like if you don't go to bed right now, I'm telling you, Tante Macoute's going to come to get you. He's going to put you in his knapsack. And he's huge, and he can walk from mountaintop to mountaintop to mountaintop with his bad children, right? So the Macoute, all right, was the version of the Secret Service of the United States. We'll say that. He was a dangerous figure. I mean, I could tell stories about this forever and ever and ever. But at the same time, there was not the kind of crime that people are talking about here. Okay, so people who are really, really old remember him as a controversial figure in the sense that yes, he was awful, but yet there was no crime in the country. Because he would kill you. All right, if there was. Okay, right. You have to say everything is wonderful, you're wonderful, the gouvernement, merveilleux. All right, you have to say these things because he wanted to be flattered, okay, in addition to this. So I guess what's my point? My point is that cultures and governments and politics grow up under certain very specific historic circumstances. And that to try to superimpose, somebody else's plan, so to speak, or no matter how good it is, isn't going to take root, okay, in the same way. One day I'll tell you all about how when HIV came, they tried to bring condoms and they were being used for water balloon wars and stuff like that because nobody knew how to use them.
The problem is justice. No justice. Yes, justice. No justice, no peace. In Haiti. Justice, that's it. I think you talk about Papa Doc. Now, Papa Doc was better than now.
Yeah, see, I was going to avoid saying that myself. Okay, but well, what Madame means is, all right, is
better.
Is that it's like saying, what do you want? What do you prefer? What's your preference? Do you want to be able to go anywhere you want in the country, through the city at any hour, night, and feel that, no one's going to hurt you except for the Tante Macoute? All right, so, you know what I'm saying? It's that trade-off, you know what I'm saying? It's chaos versus really, brutal sort of, maybe people who are, familiar with the American situation with like Saddam Hussein and so
I was just going to say, it's almost like that situation.
Right, it's like, we're running the show with an iron fist, okay, essentially. And, Americans can't understand this. But they can't control it. Okay, but it's like the pottery barn thing. Once you break it, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yes.
What is it?
Most of the people, they have a lot of church right now.
But you have all these different groups of people in one place that don't get along with each other. Okay, and so the only way you can make everybody get along is by cracking a whip on them, which seems inhumane on the one hand, but when you take that system apart, what you have is chaos. Okay, and that's precisely what happened here.
I wanted to ask Miriam, you probably grew up with your parents who are a little older and they lived during the Papa Doc time. And
Yes.
When did you leave Haiti?
I left up to come in 1986. Okay. Yeah, I was in New York first and I came to Oakland in 1990.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you travel back and forth?
Yes, it's my own city there, yeah.
And so what do you think, what's your perspective on sort of everything that everyone's talking about?
Yeah, I can understand what he was saying, which is true, like, and then I was, when I was with like, I knew Papa Doc and then his son, Baby Doc, yeah. So everything was, wonderful. We have
Yes.
tourists,
Yes.
and then, we go to the beach. You can stay
Yes.
at night, 2 or
Eagle
3,
Beach.
Yes.
But at the same time, there was no freedom of press, You couldn't say anything that against the government. Everybody is like, or if you deviate from what you're supposed to do, things going to happen to you. And then, like you said, now we have Papa is gone, and then we have supposed to be kind of like a democracy, but it's like chaos,
No.
It's like chaos.
So what do you think would fix things, or how do you think things would be better, or
Well,
what do you think should happen?
I think also there's the mentality we have to change. For example, I know a lot of people who wants to do great things, like some people who wants to, depending on your income, they want to give you, let's say if you want to buy a house, depending on your income, they'll help you. If you don't have a lot of money, you can just pay as little as possible. And then, let's say I'm in the government, I can find 10 people, 20 people, just pay them $20, $50, and then they will keep that person who's doing good for them. It's like they don't realize, they don't realize that the person is just helping them, to get better. But because everybody's overearning and everything, it's easy to just give $20, $50 and then to go and murder this same person who's going to help you. So there's education. We need, we're so poor that we can, they want to understand that person is here to help to get better. Give you $50, $60, and then that's
For the people on the street, have decent places to live, enough food, education for all children, and all the health care.
Yes,
It's going to take a long time.
Thanks for that again, Pam.
Okay.
But that's a perfect segue to our next topic, which is this question of photo ops, right? And I know if Jim, you wanted to talk a bit more about, I know you had experience that was different, maybe a little different from Courtney's, but as she described and as I've heard from you guys went there and you felt like you were shepherded around for photo ops.
Well, two great
gosh, I was
photographers.
gonna take it.
Yeah. But it was actually I asked Courtney to edit the photos, so I wasn't in any of them. Thank you. And I just felt that the photos were being misused to document events that didn't really happen. For example, one of the criminal things is very small scale criminal, but a cargo container filled with goods were brought over to Haiti to be distributed at this school opening. When we got there, we were told that the goods were not available to be distributed and that they were in
Customs.
no, it was even worse. I'm going to let Courtney tell this part of the story because I couldn't believe it when I was told. Where were the goods?
Lost. Then they never showed up. Then they were being stolen, being divided in different ways, and then finally, Renault wanted to wait and distribute them in the fall when there was another election going on.
And one of the little stories was that they were locked in a shipping container in Port-au-Prince, and the person who's in charge of the shipping container is out of town, and he's the only one with the keys. And that was told to a large group of people. So anyways, the school wasn't built yet, which I can understand, there's delays, but we didn't find that out until we got there. The goods were gone. I'm going to give a speech to a bunch of parents who
They didn't exist.
didn't exist, and they carved out, they chose 6 healthy-looking children and had them sit there, and then they asked me to give a speech.
To the children. To the 6 children.
Yeah, I certainly didn't do that. I just told these kids to stick together and watch out for the adults.
That was a great speech.
Well, I just said they have to work together, if they even understood what I was saying. But
Does anybody want to look at the book?
I did not want to be part of that system of exploitation because then I'm doing harm. So thank you for photoshopping the other things.
You know what? I also want to kind of contextualize what Jim just said here, because first of all, Haiti is a small country, and when I was growing up, there were 6 million people. I think there's 12 now, right? Wow. I think the population has really doubled, but that's still not a lot of people for a whole country, right? So it's the same people every day. Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like you see all this movement back and forth, and all these people. This is a lot of people, but it's not a lot of. It's the same people. Okay, moving back and forth. So everybody knows everybody. Okay, is the point. So on a smaller scale like that, everybody knows everybody. Okay, to some extent. And I just wanted to point out that on a much larger scale, the same kind of stuff that you're talking about happens here in the United States as well. Okay, but you're not aware of it. Okay, because of the scale at which which it occurs and your inability to be able to access this information. But even on the scale that you're referring to, I mean, this is really common sorts of stuff. Okay, that occurs in the Middle East, in Sri Lanka, in India.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, in other words, what I'm saying, this is not particular to Haiti. Okay, this is not a Haiti specialization. This is something that occurs all over the place.
What you were down there in 2013, was it early 2013?
It was around the Easter holiday.
Because the ports were out of commission for a very, very long time, and shipping containers weren't coming through for maybe a year. And so at some point, the wait for items to be shipped down was like 3 to 6 months, and a lot of things had to come through the airports. So even around that time, there were still issues. I don't know exactly what was happening in the port at that time, but everything was slow. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say things came through properly. So it's not necessarily criminal activity involved. I mean, maybe there was, but a lot of times too, in my experience, is that there's a lot of saving face that needs to happen. Nobody wants to admit to you that the country's infrastructure is broken down and that they're not competent. And so there's a lot of excuses that can be made, and
I mean,
I appreciate that, and that's a reasonable explanation. And also, I would not want to experience the embarrassment of having to apologize, but I would. I mean, the people who organize this, I would take responsibility for the problem that I'm dealing with, and not make up all these stories.
Well, I mean, to sort of contextualize that a little bit. In Haiti, as in almost any other place I've ever been in the world, India, Sri Lanka, Thailand or whatever, you use the proper word, which is saving face. Okay, in here, I mean, this certainly has happened to me in Haiti. You may not know precisely where something is, right? So you want to ask somebody local, can you please tell me where such a thing is? And they'll tell you, okay, it's over there, and you go down, you go around, and they don't really know, okay, where. You get there, and you're like, but because they don't want to disappoint you. Does that make sense? Okay, they don't want to disappoint you if they don't want you to think that they're stupid, right? Okay, that they don't understand their own community, so they'll tell you something, and it's just part of the culture. I mean, so somebody may not just. You see, Americans like to see things in black and white, and everything in Haiti happens in gray.
Oh, I thought it happens in like orange, lime, green.
I don't know if you ever watched the show Jimmy Kimmel. So they always ask people things that happen that never happened. Like, oh, did you know that Obama, went like, for example, to China, or he like punched somebody? They didn't say that. They say like, oh yeah, I saw it. They'll go along. Like Jimmy Kimmel, they have a section like they'll ask people about all kinds of questions, and then even though things didn't happen, they'll say yes, they saw it. They saw it on TV. What were you doing? Say yeah. I was with my sister or somebody. I mean, that happens here also. I mean, sometimes like people don't want to say like they don't know. They just go along with the flow.
It's there, right? Just go there.
And I think there's also a lot of respect for large show, like ceremonies seem to be really a big deal. So having that kind of event, you know, sort of one way to define success, because we were able to pull all these people together, we're going to do this thing. And that often happened with us too. It was the event around the grand opening was better show of success than the actual thing that we were going to be opening. So that may be cultural too. I don't know. What do you think?
I do think so. I feel like I'm in Haiti. Could you turn that air conditioner on? Okay, a little bit.
More of that.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. Then we get some air.
Do you want us to open
the doors?
Yeah, the doors maybe.
Do the doors instead.
Great concert.
We need contact. We need the heat.
There was a comment back to the photo op. We took a bunch of school supplies down to Honduras a number of years ago, and sandals and teddy bears and things for the kids. And we get to the school, and the officials wanted us to leave the things with them, and they'll distribute them and this type of thing. So we played the photo op card and said, well, the people that donated the items, they want to see the pictures of the kids with the items. So we like to go into the classrooms and pass things out, and we want to get a picture with all the kids. And they respected that begrudgingly, but we were able to go in there and pass things out. And now, after we left, what happened, we don't know, but we're imagining that they kept their shoes and they kept their teddy bears and their school supplies. But we could foresee them not getting to the kids that needed it.
Can you imagine, though, if we had a video here, we'd show it, but imagine the level of deprivation we're talking about. People are really desperate and lack these material goods. Shepherded into a town hall type meeting where there are boxes and boxes of treats like toys, and there's no organization at all. The people in Plaisance, they were totally out of control. I understand the word amok now, okay? It was...
Well, you saw the video that was playing on the wall for the exhibition.
There were medical supplies that were included maybe next to the boxes of the toys. There were adults taking toys and shoving them in boxes. And I don't blame the adults, but the organization was just so poor. And the show, I understand wanting to put on a good show too, but it didn't benefit anyone. There's a photo in that book of two little children. Actually, they look beautiful. They're dressed up so well, and they're playing with syringes. Okay, and these are, it's not a drug syringe. It's to orally administer medication. But this is why I got separated from the group. I'm taking photos like this, and I kept one. It was just horrible. It's irresponsible for the adults. I don't mean the adults who live in Plaisance. I mean the adults who are organizing this activity, and it included us. And I think I feel a responsibility. I should have. I just can't believe I didn't do this, but I didn't vet the organization at all. I just had faith, and by asking some questions and doing some reading, which that's more like me than no. I have that side of it.
But there wasn't a lot of information at the time.
Well,
particularly about the.
Yeah, well, there was enough. There was enough to ask questions, but
would you even be able to trust the information that you?
Well, that's another good question, but I want to accept some responsibility. And I think we need to ask very good questions about organizations before we participate in any helping. Otherwise, we do damage. And so I think I don't think we did any help at all.
No, we try to do site visits. We'll do a site visit before we do it.
Yeah, that's good. We're pretty naive, our group.
Now, Jocelyne, I know you have a question that you wanted to pose.
She was want to know what exactly you want to help for Haiti, but I think you responded to the question.
I would just love to see, if we use the term economic justice, I'd like to see ways of, that every family would have a means of sustaining themselves, that there would be security, that you're safe at night. We were talking informally earlier, but certainly access to food and education and medicine. I think that is a huge effort. I think it needs to be really well organized, well coordinated.
Sorry?
You want me to share them? Yes.
That are helping children, mostly with their own money. The one that's called Chantal Liman, she went to school in New York City and decided to go back to Haiti to help the poor people. And then another one is Father Woodell, who is doing the same thing. And the third one, I think, is
Verdigris.
They use their own
Pass it
money
around.
to help out.
So the Handicap Foundation, yes, so they passed us some organizations that people have been sending communications back and forth about how to help. Could you find someone to help the foundation? Could you come down and see the organization, see what we do?
Yes.
Jocelyne, she was telling me about a friend of hers who does crafts, I think, asked her in French about her friend who does it.
Lives in Canada?
No, yes, Canadian.
Yeah, I do have this brochure. And there is they ask for sponsor a second school child, a sponsor for teachers, a hub feed for children.
Good job.
Yeah, there's some stuff here.
So does Jocelyne think that that is good? Is that good?
Yes.
For Haiti?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's
Donc, tu penses que ça va aider?
Oui, yes.
Yeah, it will be helpful.
Well, it sounds like you're providing information about specific organizations to support, but what are the qualities of the best organizations helping actually providing services in Haiti that are helpful? In other words, what is differentiating those organizations from the not so good organizations? And how are they dealing with the issues of demand, especially? How are they, for example, you mentioned this lead organization. How are they able to be successful in a way that, does that question make sense?
Yeah, well, how does this organization remain successful?
Or others that you've seen that have been successful, yeah. What are the qualities and why don't more organizations? Because I understand about the well-meaning service trips.
There are hundreds and hundreds of organizations in Haiti run by foreigners who are trying to help, whether it's a school, a village, a business, a mission, a church. They're everywhere. It's so hard to know who to help. When you work at the embassy, people are petitioning constantly for money, so you read these reports all the time about these amazing programs, just amazing programs. And some which you don't know how to evaluate.
So do you think the quality that makes them more successful is time spent? Is it like staying there for over the long term and getting to know the community, or is it?
Yeah, and I think it's partnership. It's local. It's public-private partnership. It's local foreign cooperation.
It's like what you were saying though about people actually living there as well. Like the people who run that meat company, they actually, it's like they're embedded in the society as well. Like they're not just visiting and coming back and forth.
Right, and it's not a fake.
Photo ops and then leaving.
Right.
Because you've been, is Haitian, do we have an institute still there in the Champ de Mars?
I don't know if it's at Champ de Mars, but it is still there, where they go to English classes and things like that.
Right, so it still exists.
It does still exist. Yeah. I don't know, one of the challenges that was taking place was that there's all these different disparate sort of funders who aren't talking to each other. There wasn't a coordinated response, and I think people were taking a look at that. I think that's really critical. There's a website, I can't remember what it is, but you can actually go, it's like almost a Haiti aid map or something like that, where you can go and see who's doing what work and where. You know, we're all going to have different ideas of like where to put your money. And I don't think we have enough time today to figure all that out. But, you know, and I hate to say, like, you know, the idea that we are different in how we evaluate success, there's a lot of cultural differences in how we move forward in helping. Haitians might do it a certain way, Americans might do it in a different way, and I think that you have to sort of evaluate what you want to support. And my role in supporting the deaf community has absolutely nothing to do with money. I have never given a penny. That's not what I have to give. What I have to give is my knowledge about how to start a nonprofit, how to run a nonprofit, how to hire people, how to, you know, all the things I've done through my career. So I guess my help is through mentoring. And so we do it on Skype, we do it through emails. So I haven't had to give money, you know, I haven't gotten myself in that situation. But I think you have to really do your research, and you have to know very carefully before you send what's it being used for. And the idea of sending things down, the other thought that's been discussed a lot by people in Haiti is instead of sending, if you're going to go there with things, it might be better to buy them when you get there and support the local economy. Help the local shop owners buy more inventory as opposed to bringing it in, is one thought.
And I think we can use that to jump into kind of my last topic that I want to ask you today, which is the question of humanitarian images, right? You know, and part of the reason why we're here and we're sitting in an art gallery was because of these images and how we know of injustices abroad, suffering, how we know about the earthquake, post-earthquake response, aid groups, whether it's, you know, nonprofits, whether it's a more documentary or even art production, it all revolves around these images, right? And how it might, say, have a weird relationship to art, right? Is art in service of these efforts, or is art, say, a distraction? And so that opens up a whole other can of worms, which is the ethical question about humanitarian images, and how, you know, in this case, with Courtney, we wouldn't be talking about this if it weren't for the images, right, in the first place. So even though it's easy, it might be easy for some people to disparage this type of image making, it's extremely vital, and no other form of communication really hits that visceral impact like photo and video does. I don't know if you had any thoughts, you know, being a photographer, being a documentarian, about these questions surrounding these types of images.
Well, I thought I had wanted to be a photojournalist for a while, and I took a class in ethics, and if you're a photojournalist, you have to continue to document the house burning and instead of going in to help people in the house. And I decided I couldn't do photojournalism because I would be like, and so I find documentary nice gray, blue, purple, yellow area that I can hang out in that is not photojournalism, because I feel that everything is photoshopped and manipulated, and enjoy manipulating them. And so I mean, there are beautiful images and horrifying all at the same time. So I'm not the person for the answer.
Actually, I want to ask you a question too. You know, I mean, you know, feminism and so forth have over the past 30, 40 years, like, made us aware of the concept of the gaze and, you know, the significance of who you are within the production of a piece of information or a piece of artwork, like, you know, a documentary, right? So if you know, when we go to the movies, for the most part, we're experiencing the male gaze, okay, because the director is the one who's directing the camera. But in this case, you're a woman, all right, and you are behind the lens. And I'm wondering, what difference do you feel being a woman brought to our gaze?
G-A-Z-E, gaze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a little stuck on that one for a minute. I don't see the difference because I have only been this gender. I've only ever seen it this way.
Well, I mean, because here's what I thought I saw differently. Okay, because last year there was somebody else who did photo documentary, and they did a bunch of stuff in Haiti. And interestingly enough, there was a real pointed sort of focus on the poverty. And interestingly enough, a lot of your stuff didn't have that in it per se. I mean, people looked at it like they were happy. I mean, I don't know if they were happy, okay, but they were contented human beings. I mean, you weren't looking for the most wicked things that you could find. And I don't know, personally, I think that I mean, it could be just you, okay, your personality, but I also think your gender also, to some extent, really influenced how you use that lens.
Interesting.
It seems like you focus more on the humanity.
That's right.
Than the environment.
Well, I didn't take any pictures of the guns.
Right. Which they all would have done.
And I did notice that in the community room where we were in Plaisance, the cement structure that was gated and people were outside that wanted to be inside, and those select 6 that were chosen to be inside the room, out the back had all the trash been swept and was just, because there's no infrastructure, so it was just out there in the back, and I was struck by that image, yet I didn't take a picture of it.
I was working with Marty and Courtney on sort of selecting some of the images and looking through them, and I was really struck by how they both would point out little details that the rest of us might not sort of notice, and Courtney would say, "That's a bank." I was like, "Oh, I thought that was a little house," or "That's the phone vendor." So I feel like Marty was also shooting a lot of the still images between both of them. So they both see, I felt like they both see beauty, and they both just were documenting literally with a neutral eye. And so what they were both showing was sort of just what they were seeing. But then later on, when they would describe it, something like Courtney saying, "Look at those flowers growing there. You know, no one has running water, and they made enough water to water those flowers and make those flowers grow." Like little details like that they were able to describe from their experience that you might not get just from looking at the photos. So there's always also these other layers and stories about who made the photo, what they saw, and then what they see when they choose it and print it and chose it for the show. So it was a very interesting process of, learning all the different meanings.
So maybe it's the formal training in the visual arts.
Yes, they're beautiful, but they also, there's other things that you will see in them, like when there's a picture of all of them sitting in the fancy hotel with drinks, Courtney was like, "Look, we have drinks!"
While you're saying that, I'm thinking that the experience of being in Haiti is so magical and so intense that only the person who was there that day can really have the emotion around that photograph.
I have a question for you. I mean, you keep, don't worry, it's okay to put it there. Because you're touching on a spiritual sort of aspect. I mean, oftentimes Haiti is written up as the magical little island or the little paradise or whatever. And I think you have to be a certain kind of person to be able to have that experience with the place. And you've had it, obviously. Can you explain that a little bit? Because there's some transcendental experiences here that you've had that you're not expressing yet.
No. I don't know. Our third week in, we went through a really, really dangerous ambush. It was the most frightening moment for my son and I. It was intense. And from that moment on, everything was intense. It was like, your adrenaline's going all the time. But great. Driving was an amazing experience for me. I felt like it was a living video game every day. I loved it. And it was exciting.
So awful.
I saw zombies twice.
That's nothing.
I did see
That's
them.
just-
You know, and I had this amazing relationship with our housekeeper. She taught me so much. Yeah.
And you kept looking at them. You're not supposed to do
I
it.
came face to face on the street with one. He was licking my headlamp.
And did they talk?
No.
No, yeah, they won't talk.
No, I don't know. You have experiences and you hear stories and.
Yeah, you have this one domain. Supposedly they give you the substance, you know, you appear to be dead, and then after that they give you an antidote, so you awake and everything. So supposedly they can control you, ask you to do all kind of things. Yeah. That's a zombie, yeah. So you're supposed to be dead, you know.
Like a
Yeah,
zombie.
zombie.
They bury you.
Yeah, they bury, yeah. And
But-
but you're going to be dead, they give you something that, you know, you don't have like no vital sign and everything, you happen to be dead. And then after a while they give you the antidote of the poison, and then you can get up and, you know.
What was that film in class?
The substance comes from, there's two ways to acquire that substance. Not that I want to give out the formula or anything like that. All right, but I mean, the main ingredient is that you take the liver of a female puffer fish in estrus and dry it. And that has tetrodotoxin in it. But you have to know how to, there's different ways to administer it. You have, it depends how you want to affect the person, whatever. Do you want it to go through your hands? Then you have to mix it with snake venom. Okay, so it's absorbed to the skin. Or you take with a reed and through the keyhole of their bedroom or whatever to inhale.
So people are being victimized by this?
It's part of a historic method of capital punishment.
The same things in your country, right?
I mean,
Film that you were pretty sure that's a film in
yeah, you
class.
can't.
This is 10
I mean,
years
people are always like really fascinated,
Yeah,
okay, by this
you can
subject.
die.
But the fact is, it's a cultural. It's part of the culture of the country, and it's written into the Constitution. Okay, how it can be actually deployed.
It's all woven into the voodoo, though, isn't it not? I don't know enough about it, but.
Not voodoo exactly. Bizango.
Bizangoul?
Go. Bizango.
No, I did change.
Yeah,
It's still there.
Look, I mean,
The stories about Lugaou.
Here's
The story about Lugaou.
yes.
Yes, that's
I'm just
lots of.
trying to understand the statement she made. She
What's
said
she
she
saying?
saw zombies.
Yeah.
Somebody who had that
Yeah.
stuff in their body
Yeah.
and then
I don't
were
know.
buried and
I don't know.
then rose
Yeah,
again.
yeah, that's what they said to zombies, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I didn't see them buried and rise from the dead, but I did have, you know,
No, if you
I observed something that I could not explain
What is?
that appeared to me to be, I don't know.
Look, historically, you can't really afford to lose anything in Haiti. Okay, I mean, the way the religion is set up is that it is continuously brought back and repeated. Okay, if you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so the point is, if somebody did something so offensive in these small communities that required them to be put a stop to, it could be something like rape, it could be something, there's a lot of things that could happen here, is that you put them out of commission, so to speak, where they're still able to function on some level so that you don't lose them completely.
Oh. So you zombieize them.
Yeah,
Oh.
and
That's
also,
punishment.
part of the culture also, I mean, maybe less now, but when I was going, like if you're sick, it's nothing, you know, somebody did something to you, you know. Because that if you're dead, it's because somebody did something to you, that's why you're dead. It's not like no natural causes, you know. And they have that belief, you know. Maybe less now, but especially in the rural area, yeah, that's the thing. Like if you're sick or something, you're dead, it's somebody who did something to you. And then you that's why you go to the you know, like voodoo thing. Sometimes you go and then to spill the, you know, it's like they throw something on you. What's the word? Like, you know, if you want to, you know, what's the word? They throw something on you and then you want to erase the spill. Spill? That's the word?
Spell.
Oh, yeah, spell. Thank you. Yeah. So they have that culture, yeah.
10 years in the past, but right now, I think people, the voodoo is less than before.
No, that's what I said, less now.
Less than before.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people, when they have a lot of pastor, lot of church, lot of priests pray. If you are sick, you go to the priest and pray for you. And yes.
Yeah, but a lot of those priests went to those voodoo ceremonies.
The vaudou, after Duvalier, the vaudou, yes, disappeared.
Well, it went underground. It didn't disappear.
I think I heard it almost every day.
Yes.
It's reduced right now. It's reduced right now.
Here, like if you go to Miami, like in the Asian communities, they still talk about it.
No.
They still discover things in Miami and find stuff that has to,
You know, Miriam, when I growing, they have a lot of people did voodoo. But right now, no. Lot of people pray. You know, they have a lot of church. Yes, they have a lot of. That's what, you know, I live in Haiti. You know, before, not now.
Brian, Courtney, you know, would like us to at some point get to wrapping up.
Yeah. I think we're ready for my last kind of prompt, and then we can kind of open it up. Everyone can kind of mingle. We have some more refreshments.
If you have any information, maybe you could help. Princeton University and Harvard University, your School of Medicine, they went to Haiti to learn about that.
Yeah.
Whatever drug that they give to those people.
Yeah.
To become a zombie, whatever.
Yeah.
So they can use it during surgery instead of using
You know what?
anesthesia.
Okay, for 50 years they're talking that same story.
And really?
Okay. Yes.
But
C'est content, the même chose. Okay. You know what? The substance can also be gotten from a frog. But you know, let me put you in touch with Max Beauvoir. You know Max Beauvoir?
He did.
Max Beauvoir is dead. I just talked to him.
Yes, this year in 2016.
Really?
Yes.
Isn't he with that band?
Yes, he did.
No, he's Mariani. He's
I don't know. He was sick.
Yeah. He died this year?
Yes, this year.
Was he
Haitian before, but not now.
Yes, he's married to a woman from France.
Oh,
I was really good friends with them for a long time.
But talking about Princeton University, they show them how to make it.
Yes.
You find all kind of
Yes.
Sounds like he has the recipe too.
dead animal, and then you dry it up.
Yeah, but it has to be done under specifically ritualistic conditions.
And then, knowing those Haitians,
Yeah.
they will never tell
Look.
you all of it.
Yeah,
They'll give you part of it.
that's right.
Because
But
this is their power.
look, the end of if you walk away with a moral from today's event, just remember these words, because this is true. For anything to work, you must believe.
Yes, sure.
Me, I'm
If you don't
born.
believe it, it doesn't work.
So let me just get to my last thing, which is, you know, we're talking about all these images, right? So what does it's an open-ended question, but what does it mean when, say, the problems that you have with this trip, for instance, and the poverty and the suffering that we know, or that we think we know, is made beautiful in art, and it's made into a beautiful picture? You know, what sorts of questions does that open up? What, if Haitian friends around here want to also chime in on this, you know, what does it feel to see beautiful images of suffering in your home?
Beautiful images.
Just leave it at that.
We are very sad about Haiti.
What'd you say? We're sad about Haiti.
Yes, I'm very, very, very sad. When I go in, Haiti is not like that. You know, they are respectful. You know, Haiti was a hard worker. Now Haiti become hard story. You understand me?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, Craig said you must believe, right? And so the beautiful images of pain and suffering, they certainly lend credibility to somebody's interpretation of the truth and what's real. And I think you have to have the belief, you have to know this is real if you're going to contribute or try to change anything. So I think that's helpful.
And probably everybody needs a good spanking, okay, to make this, put them in order. Yeah.
You know, if you go to Haiti to do an aid mission, you're really seeing a community in need. That's what your focus is. But if you're there for a longer period of time, you really start to see, I see hardworking Haiti when I'm down there. Everybody's working hard.
Yes.
Everybody's working, doing something. They're so entrepreneurial. Yeah. Everybody's got to trying to find a way to do something without a job. Mm-hmm. And there's the children are in school, and there's a lot going on at the higher education level. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of art, and so I think it's really important to see all of that as well, not just the poverty.
With that, if anyone has any final comments, and encourage all of you to stay and talk to our panelists. We'll be here until 8 at least. Any final comments?
I would like to know what is next after this time. What is next? I've never been to Haiti, but I'm very interested to know this story after the tragedy happened in Haiti, because I don't consider really Haiti as my country, Rwanda. But there's a similar things like poverty. Yeah, there's a similar things. When I saw the images last time, I was very excited to see the beautiful of the country. So, what is next? Do we gonna fundraise for this country? What is next? That's my question. What do you think may be next after this one?
Well, for me, the material that everyone passed over is wonderful, so I would research the material and find one or two that I can have as a service learning project for future courses to sort of spend a longer time with the group than just documenting someone else's trip.
Mm-hmm.
That would be for me.
People who are franchise, they have to make good organization too. Not you know, we and French.
Yeah, whatever.
It's very important to meet good people who's doing good things in Haiti. You understand?
Yes. Because there are still good people doing good things in Haiti.
Yes.
There was a question about how do we know where to help or who to give our money to. When I first came back, I met with a couple of people who have projects in Haiti, but they're here in Buffalo. And we had talked about maybe trying to create some kind of a network of people in the community who are engaged with Haiti to start putting together information about, who's doing what, and can people collaborate? Why should we send different shipping containers? Maybe there could be one coming from Buffalo for various organizations. But I wonder if there's an opportunity to create a resource so that people can say, I want to donate, but how do I know? And maybe there's a local person you can talk to who's actually doing that work. Put a face to the funding.
I know Gulf State, some people from Gulf State, like they're doing the fundraising for Boyne in Haiti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what is her name? The woman from Geneseo.
Right.
Yeah.
They're doing it in the north.
Yeah. That's a good example. Yeah. There's a doctor in Lockport who goes down twice a year. He started a health clinic in Port-au-Prince on Delma 75. There's different things happening.
Yeah. So when the next group meeting for this group?
Yeah, Craig. When's the next group meeting?
I don't know. We'll have to figure it out.
Well, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you to all our panelists.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being patient. I know it's running a little long. And so please drink some wine, have some food, and
communicate.
Okay, so thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Where was Expo when you went to it?
It was on. Yeah, it was on.